In episode 6, you get a better look at what happened to Allison after she arrived in the 60s. We already know that she went in that restaurant and got kicked out, but when she was leaving, a couple of white dudes were starting to give her a hard time, and she just punched one of them in self-defense, but they started chasing after her. And they chased after her right into the salon, where the women in the salon protected her. She started working there, cleaning up hair, all the while not being able to talk. But as they started to hold those meetings at the salon, she started to take more of an interest. And Raymond also started to take more of an interest than her. Slowly, she did start to get her speech back, and the two started dating and, ended up getting married. And in present day, Ray just is having trouble wrapping his head around what he just heard. The whole backstory of where Allison came from and the fact that she has this superpower. So he says, all right, well, prove it. So they head to a tailor that normally refuses to serve black people, and Allison does the trick, and it works. They outfit Raymond in new suits. And Raymond says to her as they're leaving, why don't you use this for good? I mean, think of the good that you could do with the movement. But then we realize why she doesn't use it a lot. Because she sees that same restaurant where they kicked her out when they first arrived, and they had the sit-in, and she walks in. And of course, they refuse to give her service, but she does the I heard a rumor trick, shutting the guy up and forcing him to pour hot coffee on his hand. And it gets to the point where Ray actually has to get her to stop. As they get home, something isn't sitting well with Ray, and he asks her, did you ever use that on me? And she says, no, of course not. But he asks, would I even know? And the answer to that, of course, is no, he wouldn't. But then she notices an invitation on the ground, and it's the same invitation that Diego and Luther got from Reginald. And Luther and Diego, along with Vanya, are at Elliot's, and they're discussing whether or not they're going to want to go. And Diego wants to go, but Luther has no interest in it. He just doesn't want to face his dad. And Vanya can't figure out why he wouldn't want to go, and Luther lets her in on the fact that she had such a shitty childhood and all the things that her dad did to suppress her of her powers. And that actually makes Vanya want to meet him even more. But Diego convinces them both to go, saying, we're going to go in there as a unified front. No more number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. We're Team Zero. We're together on this. We're no longer children. We're adults, and we'll face him as such. Now, while Diego was convincing them to go, Klaus is facing his followers. And Bennett's been pressuring him to do the right thing and tell them the truth, and he does that, standing up in front of all of them and saying, I'm a fraud. But they just think this is another teaching of his. Very similar to in Fight Club, the whole his name is Robert Paulson thing. They just aren't getting it. And no matter what this guy says, they're twisting it to be a bigger deal than it is. Not actually hearing what he's saying, thinking there's a deep meaning to it, when in all honesty, there's not. And it gets to the point where Klaus walks off saying, you know what, here, I tried. Klaus and Ben then start getting in an argument about how Klaus handled it, and Klaus says, you're turning into dad. And Ben gets really upset when he hears this and ends up running through Klaus. And it's a really weird sensation. It's the first time it's happened, and they both aren't quite sure exactly what just went down between the two. Although, two people that saw it, although they're unaware of it, are Ben's crush in the cult and Dave, who showed up at the mansion because he saw a flyer with Klaus's picture on it. And he wants to apologize for everything that happened the previous day, but he also is curious of how Klaus knew all that information about him. And Klaus plays it off like, well, I'm a prophet. It's the same reason I know your favorite song, your favorite food, and I know about the fact that you don't feel comfortable in your own family, and you think that joining the military is going to help with that, but it's not. Dave, who knows all of this to be true, is just trying to convince himself that everything that Klaus is saying is bullshit. And Klaus says, no, in 1968, you're going to die on a hill in Vietnam. Here. And then he hands him his own dog tags, saying, this is the only thing I have left of you. Dave, who at this point is trying to hold back tears, says, well, it's too late. I already enlisted. After our little lunch meeting, my uncle took me down to the recruitment office and signed me up, and I leave next week. And that wasn't supposed to happen. Dave was supposed to sign up for the military after Kennedy was shot. And Klaus is really upset because Dave just told him that it was actually Klaus who kind of pushed him into the military. And as Klaus is trying to process what just happened, one of the followers comes up and hands him the invitation for Reginald. Now, one person who hasn't gotten an invite yet is number 5, who takes his foot off of Lila's neck after the handler reveals that she's her daughter. And the handler has lured number 5 to the warehouse because she has a proposition for him. If he takes out the commission's board of directors, then she will make sure to get his entire family back to 2019. She wants to be the leader of the commission. She doesn't like the direction that it's headed. The thing about the board is nobody knows who the members are, and while they meet quarterly, it's never in the same location. However, she knows who they are and knows where they're going to be. But Fi brings up a good point. What about the apocalypse going to happen in 6 days? And she says, oh, that's not going to happen anymore. And Fi says, okay, well, what about the apocalypse in 2019? Because I remember you saying that apocalypse had to happen. But the handler claims that she was just towing the company line and it doesn't have to happen. And if she's in charge of the commission, then they can freestyle more, not having to stick to the strict directives of the commission. So number 5 asks for some more time to think about it and gets out of there. The handler, however, heads over to the Swedes, who are enjoying a spitz, and they have no idea who she is, but she gives them the location of Diego, saying that he's the one who obviously killed their brother, and if they want vengeance, to go after him. And the whole reason that she wants Diego gone is because he's having sex with her daughter. She does, however, give them directions to keep number 5 alive. So they head over to try to find Diego, who has already left for the dinner with Reginald, but they don't find Diego, they find Elliot, and they end up torturing him with his own dentist equipment and leaving a message on the ground in Swedish that reads an eye for an eye. Now, all of the kids have gotten to the location of the dinner, and they're all planning on who's going to talk first, how they're going to approach this thing, what to bring up first to Reginald, but all of that gets thrown out the window when Reginald bursts the door, and he wants some answers. He knows they're not KGB, CIA, FBI, but they seem to know an awful lot about him. They seem to be stalking him, and the weirdest thing is they're all calling him Dad. Why? So 5 takes the lead and explains everything, including the fact they all have powers, and Reginald wants proof of that, and while they don't want to be show ponies, one by one they all start showing off their powers. Diego then once again brings up the fact that they know he's involved in killing the president, but Reginald completely dresses him down and makes Diego feel about 2 inches tall, and the verbal tongue lashing actually brings back Diego's stutter. 5 explains, though, how the world is ending, they need some answers, and Reginald says, well, if you're all superheroes, figure it out yourself, and gets up to leave. But before he does, he has to have a private word with 5. And the first thing he wants to know from number 5 is why he was quoting Homer and in Latin. And 5 explains how Reginald made all the children learn it. 5 then asks what he knows about time travel, because 5 has yet to master it. And Reginald's advice is to stop jumping decades and start jumping seconds. An acorn can't become an oak tree overnight. But that's not exactly the advice that 5 was looking for. Reginald reminds him that seconds can change the world, but 5 was looking for more concrete advice. 5 then apologizes for giving Reginald a hard time when he was a kid, and he's kind of expecting an "I told you so" back, but Reginald just says, that's no skin off my teeth, don't worry about it. And it might be the first normal conversation that 5 has ever had with his father. But without a real idea of how to save the world, 5 is forced to go and accept the handler's offer, where she gives him the information on where the board of directors is meeting, and it's 1982 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Now, the rest of the kids have left the dinner, and as Diego is leaving, he notices that Grace is in the car waiting for Reginald. So she gives Grace the picture of Reginald on the grassy knoll and tells her how he's planning on killing Kennedy in a couple of days. And the guy that she's dating isn't as nice of a guy as he's playing it off. And she might want to ask him about it. And as Vanya is leaving, she runs into Sissy because they delivered the invitation to Sissy's house and she figured that's where Vanya would be. And Sissy apologizes for everything she said to Vanya, but she explains how while she wants to go off with her, she can't. They still live in 60s Texas. But Vanya keeps urging her to go with her, run away, leave Carl, and finally Sissy says, you know what, you're right, let's do it. But we can't let Carl know because his brother works for the state troopers, and if he finds out that I've left, he's gonna hunt me down. The two end up hooking up in the car, but they're completely unaware of the fact that Carl is watching all of this go down from a distance. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.